Okay, hello and welcome to another ComfyUI tutorial. Today you get to actually see me in this image. It is a terrible webcam, but someone said that I needed to do it, so now you get to see me talk while I talk, I guess. Anyway, to not waste too much time, this is going to be a long video anyway. I'm going to cover a workflow which I've created. And normally I'd have you learn how to build a workflow. Normally I like to have you work through the system with me so that you understand why each thing does what, why each node does what, and how to set these things up and some of the background behind why these things are the way they are. But in this one, I'm going to do some of that. You should understand this afterwards, but I wanted to make a workflow that is adaptable, modular, because people were saying that they wanted to just have small units and learn just on a small thing. And so this is going to build modular units and can show you how to set them up and how to hook up all the controls and then wire everything. I mean, look at this thing. There's a lot of stuff here. This is actually an active thing. I've been using this to make art today. And so it's actually in the middle of some of the stuff I was doing earlier. And as you can see, we've got controls. We've got we've got loaders, we've got switches, we've got image editing. We've got gradients, we've got colors. We've got image loading, we've got batch image loading, we've got prediffusion, we've got image analysis and turning image analysis into a prompt, and it goes to the bus, and this stuff is just your bog standard key samplers and upscale stuff. There's also ControlNet and LoRa over here. So it's a pretty fully featured workflow which I'm going to be providing you. So hopefully it makes sense. Now, it's a big system, it's complex, it's got controls in certain places and so on. And it's designed mainly to do all the stuff before you actually generate stuff. So this is where I'm first actually using the sampler, which is all the way over here. And you can see there's a whole bunch of stuff up here that comes beforehand. There's a little sampler over here, but that's not being used as you would possibly expect. Instead, basically this stuff just makes a seed for you to sample off. So you can see at the moment it's sending out kind of this red figure. It's sending out along this latent line here and goes to the samplers, and they all riff off of that one image. And then if I want to, if I find one of these that I like, what I'll do is I'll copy it with a clip space and I'll paste it in one of these. So I can paste it here, and these are just load image nodes. And the cool thing about them is they can just hold your image. So when I find something good, I put it in here and it just sits here until I'm ready to run upscales on it. So this section is not even plugged into this stuff. Like there's one connection, and that's for the prompting, but this stuff runs pretty much by itself. Like when I click go, it runs after the other stuff's done, and that's it's like a good way of just kind of setting stuff up while I'm messing around with settings. Up here, I can just be working on an upscale in the background while I'm doing other stuff. That's pretty cool. But you can set it up however you want. So I'll show you. So as you can see, they're in groups, and the reason they're in groups is because each group is its own little set of nodes, and they're connected via noodles to whatever else they need to be connected to. Now, this one is connected with a whole bunch of stuff down the bottom, all these, and we've got these ones connected with stuff. We've got height and width being sent all over the place. We've got a whole bunch of stuff going in and out of this one, in and out of these. So all this connection kind of goes between the different groups, and each group is kind of self-sustaining, like it's its own thing. If you grab the notes from each one of these groups, and then you could put them elsewhere in your workflow if you wanted to. You know, you could put image analysis way further down the line, that kind of thing. So, may as well get started because we're already pretty far into it and I haven't even explained a thing. All right, so starting off, let's talk about initial resolution. So you can put these controls anywhere. They'll drag and drop them wherever you want to use them. And initial resolution is how you set the resolution of your image. Like normally when you're setting up A1111 or whatever, you set your resolution and then it generates an image. So this is what goes into your first sampler. So this is the resolution you'll go, and everything in here gets set to that resolution. And that is because if you're loading images, you could be loading 4K, you could be loading 8K or whatever, so it's a good idea to make sure that they're a reasonable size because fade decoding and encoding takes ages on big images. So it's a good idea to keep these kind of as small as you can get away with for whatever diffusion you're going to be doing. I'm using SDXL, so it's using the preset, one of the presets from in here, from this little list here. If you're using 1.5, you'll want to be sticking to the 1.5 standard kind of reses, or you'll get clones and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so this sets the resolution of everything, and I'm going to put back where I keep it. Just be careful dragging around groups, because if you let this go on top of there and then move it, it'll drag all that stuff with it as well, which is annoying. So essentially all of that comes down to this thing here. It changes that resolution. It changes it all over the place, so you know, you shouldn't, if you mess up resolutions in here or in here or wherever, it should fix itself, in theory. In theory. And so resolution's done. The next thing that we need to be aware of is, let's go with what each of these things does. So the first one is the color noise group. Color noise is used to create a color and noise. And it has one other ability, its ability to create gradients. And it can combine a gradient with a color, and it can combine those two things with noise. So what it's doing here, if you have a look at this, we've got a gradient, and it's being blended with noise, which is Perlin noise, which is a kind of noise that kind of looks like clouds. And it's blending with what's called multiply, which is it'll only blend darker colors together. So you know, if you had like a scribble on a piece of paper and in black ink and you blended it with that, it would just have the black from that paper would appear blended here. The white paper would be gone. So the question is, how do you use this setup? Well, first off, you've got a generate gradient node. So generate gradient is pretty simple. It doesn't look simple when you're looking at it. You're like, what does this do? So the first number is where the color is located at 100%. So for instance, this bit red is at 25% along the line of the image. This could be vertical or this could be horizontal. And top to bottom, left to right. And so it's at the 25% mark on that. And it is, you know, 25500, which is red. So RGB is also the other numbers on these. So, you know, red, green in the middle, blue on the end. And so that's kind of how you set colors. That's how you create a gradient, because the gradient is formed by the space between those little nodes, and it'll kind of smooth between them, essentially. And if you've got two that are the same, the area in between is going to stay at 100%. So if you look at this bit here, I've got 25 to 40. So in between those 2 points, we stay at 100%. So this is really good. Gradients are fantastic for making landscapes. If you want to make a landscape and you want certain colors, it's amazing, like really good. It's like add a little bit of this to just before your sampler, and it will fully influence the whole image. Like that color is running through everything and kind of underlying all of these images a little bit. Not so much this one, because this is at 0.8 denoising, but more this one. Anyway, so that's how you do gradients, and we blend them together in this system up here. And it's separate because you don't want to be hunting around in these for things and you'll lose track of them. And so here I have them here, and I have it also notated what these things all do next to it. So we've got the float, the first blend node, which is this one, number 1. We have a look here, it says blend B1 is blend 1. If you set it to 1, it's going to use color, so it's going to use this orange color. And if you set it to gradient, it's going to use the gradient. And if you set it between, it will be a blend of the two. And this is the case on all nodes which are using blends like this, because a blend is basically an image switch with steps in between. So if you put it on, one or the other, it's one or the other. And if you put it halfway through, you've got information from both. If it is set to 1, will be fully noisy. So at the moment, it is actually set to 1. However, it is not showing the full noise because the blend mode over here is set to multiply. If I set this to normal, which is the default setting on these, and then I run it, it goes black and white because that's the default. That's what this Perlin noise outputs by default. But we don't want that. We want the other thing. Now I could switch this to screen, which is going to blend only the white. Only the white shades will blend with the color. Hang on. Still getting over a cold weeks later. As you can see, it's blended the white with the background instead of going with the dark. So if we switch it back to multiply, it should do it again. But cancel that. You'll see these images switching occasionally, and that's because of this setup here. Is it's batch loading from my my output folder, like all the stuff I've generated in the past. And so generally you can just ignore that. But anyway, so that's how the color noise thing works. And once it's blended those together, it outputs from this little node here. And where it outputs to is it outputs to the image processing group, and it also outputs a straight line all the way through to this switch. Now this switch is important because it's how you choose what comes out the end of this. It's how you choose what goes into the bus or your sampler or whatever. And so everything usually there'll be a color noise, there's a diffusion, there's an empty latent in here as well. And image to image should probably actually renamed to, image processing, to be honest. But you also get image to image through this. So it's doing like 4 different things, which is why we have 2 switches to run whenever we actually are using anything through here. We're using another switch to define what this means. Which, yeah, it's complicated, but I can only handle so many switches at once. I'm going to have noodles everywhere. Speaking of noodles, they are everywhere. So this one can bypass everything and just send the straight up gradient noise here. And if we go down to here, to the input sources, which is where you get your image loaders, your batch image loader, and so on. And they output, obviously they'll output the blue, they'll output to the same place. So it sends one to image processing, and it also sends another one over to this place over here. I'll just reconnect it. This is the blip analysis node, and it is amazing. It can turn your images into prompts. And it doesn't grab metadata. It looks at the image and says, what does this look like? And then it's like a reverse clip, basically. So it'll pull words out and it'll say, this is what this image looks like. And it's certainly not always right. I'll just put a show text thing over here and we'll run it. Show text nodes are amazing. And they're from the Python Goss's ComfyUI scripts. There's also ComfyUI Manager is awesome. It's what's giving me these green names next to things, and you can activate that yourself if you want. It's under the manager settings, badge nickname. All right, so this is actually showing what it thinks this image over here is. And it is being sent, I think it's being sent the load image at the moment, judging off of it. And it is being sent, it thinks it's seeing a train station with people in the station and waiting for their trains. That's what it thinks it's seeing. It's not really, it's a bunch of people around shops like a mall, but you know, its image recognition is not perfect. So that's what that is doing. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm actually building my prompt with it. You can plug anything into here, but currently this is like a little cool thing I've been messing with. I've been doing some prompt tutorials, and this is going to be used in the next one to kind of show what kind of words it thinks it should be included in it. It's complicated anyway. Anyway, I can build prompts with this and the other things and stuff. I'll go on this later. Anyway, so now we know where this thing's sending stuff, but we don't know exactly. Probably you're familiar with load image. I doubt you're familiar with load image batch. And load image batch is an interesting node. It's from Wassuit, and it allows you to basically load a folder. So you can go find a folder. It could be on your network, it can be on your hard drive, and it will sequentially load all the images from there, and then it'll run through the index of those images. So starting from 1, the first image it picks, I think they're alphabetical. I'm not 100% on the order. It could be date. I'm not sure. But so it'll run through them all one by one, and then the thing is, normally its normal kind of setting is to be manually you index it. So it's kind of like a batching without, it doesn't automatically batch more images, like next image is not always progressed, which is why we have this number counter here. And the number counter just counts up. Every time we run qprompt, it adds a number. And then we send this to the index. So it adds 1 onto the index or 2 onto the index, which gets us to the next image and so on every time we click. So through doing this, every time I click go, it's loading a different image from this folder, basically. Hopefully there's no risque images in there. I don't think there is. I think we're good. And there's also the reset counter thing here, which is just a Boolean constant node, and it is sending either a 1 or a 0 constantly. And if it's sending a 0, it's saying, I don't want to reset, so ignore me. And if it's sending a 1, it's saying, reset the index to 1 or 0, to 0 I think it is. And so it'll go, okay, this will reset if it's set to 1 and you click Q prompt. So make sure this is 0 if you are trying to cycle through images, and 1 if you don't want it to cycle, basically. Anyway, these all get sent to an input switch over here. And then it goes to an image upscale, which is used to downscale stuff that's too big and make it the right size for the rest of the workflow. And so the switches are sent through this little node here, which goes all the way up underneath everything all the way over to here. And here we can choose which one of those is to be running. So we could choose the batch, or we can choose the image. And as you can see up here, that will tell you which one is which. This area also allows you to pick the options for this particular switch as well. And they're also noted over here. So yes, hopefully that makes sense. Now describe that. Prediffusion is the next one. I've described Prediffusion a few times. I've been using it for a while to make images and to quickly prototype ideas for things. It's very simple. It's just a K sampler, low on the step count, with its own prompt, its own checkpoint. You want to use the same checkpoint as the main one, simply because if you do that, you are not going to use as much RAM. So it's not going to have to load and unload models and stuff. Now, the other thing is the prompt has to be really, really simple, has be foggy, be simplistic, be very vague, just describing kind of composition, really. Like you want gray in the middle of the thing, or certain shapes and like a room and that kind of. You don't have to be like describe a scene fully or anything, because that's not what you really want from it. You just want it to sketch out an idea of where things are. As you can see here, it's just making a figure in a red, on a red background, and it's just picking where it wants to be. And I keep this on fixed, because if it's on random and you run this, and it'll just run this every time, even if you're not using it. So better to keep this on fixed until you find what you want it to send anyway. All right. Now this one also gets sent all the way up here, all the way up to this switch, and then comes out here as Prediffusion. So you can use that image by itself, just like you can use color noises. Now, if we want to use the other options, which you'll notice all of those are also getting sent to image processing. So image processing is where this kind of setup really shines, and that is because you can cross blend all of those images together in here. And you can do visual effects. So I'm just using a blur, but you could add a sharpen, you could add a color correction, you could add color effects in this kind of section here. There's no real limit to what you can do with this setup. The controls are all up here. These are the same kind of layout. I described the node and what it does here. Hopefully, I'm not going to go through each one of these because it'll take me like 20 minutes, like it did the last time I recorded this. And it should be pretty self-explanatory. But basically, mixing and matching these, you can create different outcomes, and they'll all come into this one spot here. Blending, color, the color noise, and the prediffusion, or the images, all that stuff. And you pick which one is coming through up here, essentially. So if I want to use prediffusion, be on 2. If I want to use this one, it'll be image to image is 1. So this is now going to try and use whatever is being sent by this switch, which should be the train station. And it has. It's sent it through, and it's blended it with that gradient noise thing using these settings up here, the light blue ones. That's like 40% of the noises, color noises coming through. And yeah, so it's creating this image, and then it's sending it out this over here, and sending it through to my samplers. And as you can see, they are now interpreting it based off the prompt. And they do make some pretty cool images. But this is just the first step. This is the bit where I send images, and then I pick the ones I like, and I put them up here, and then I upscale them. I don't really like to run batches. I'd rather run individual samplers with different keys and settings. That's just my preference. All right. So once it's run that through and it's got a hold of an image that you want to make with all of that stuff and all that, you get to run the prompt over it. And so it's going to use image analysis to make part of this prompt. And you can see it's using inside the train station with people walking in the station waiting for their trains. It's adding that to this, which is the subject, which we have set ourselves. A photo, scenes from 1970s dark survival movie, nature survival on a different world, bioluminescent wet alien flora, and then I'm saying in the background. And you'll notice the name of this is Where is Text C? That's because this is being taped to the front of this, to the front of this text here. In the background, the inside of a train station is what it's doing, and it's doing that because we want to ensure that this is our foreground and everything behind this is the background, and that allows us a little bit more control over things prompt-wise. So we're not just mashing a bunch of random words together. This way we can make sure that certain things come first, because the things that are earlier in the prompt are more important. You can use, you can weight words and all that kind of stuff if you want as well. And I'm also duct taping the qualitative words on the end of it, because the qualitative words help with refining images and, you know, just putting the style on that you're after as well. And of course, there's a negative prompt as well, and it runs through here. And all that's duct taped together with the text concatenate node, which is amazing. I love these things. WAS nodes are probably the best because it gets you 4 of them instead of just 2, which you'll get with the quality of life suite. It comes through your text encode, goes into your bus, and you've got everything sorted now. And so as you can see, it's able to generate images based off of those kind of settings. And you can also send it up to here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make my own image, and you can follow along if you want, or you could stop watching because I've pretty much explained everything. I'm just going to make my own thing, and I'll kind of talk my way through it. If you want to follow along, that's cool. All right, first off, let's load an image because we want an actual image that we want to use, something specific. Batman stuff, no. Oh, we'll do, yeah, these will work. These will work much better. Got some landscape. Let's run. Yeah, this one will do. Now we have a landscape. And we are running it, so let's go up here and we will make sure that it is being chosen. So we've got one going through our processor. Resolution's good. We are using image to image over here, good. This is using image loader, good. And now, what do we got? What kind of gradient do I want? So there's some good sites around where you can grab RGB values pretty quickly. I'm going to grab about, yeah, we'll go with a, like a, yeah, we'll go with this color. Copy and put it in here. And if we delete these, oh, I need one at 50. And what color are we going to use? We'll use a darker color. Yeah, that'll do. And what are we going to make the ground? What color shall be the ground? Let's make it to maroon, whatever the color that would be. It's kind of that color in, but all right, good. So now we have a different gradient set up. How much of the color are we? I want less of the color to use, mostly the gradient. 0.1. And blend wise, how much noise do I want? Oh yeah, why not? We'll keep the amount we have. so now we have the color noise set up with the image selected. We're not using Prediffusion, so we can ignore it. And we are running through the image to image setup, which is the light blue top row here. And I am happy with the settings for that pretty much. It is blending color noise to the image, and we're going to change the actual way we're going to blend them. We're going to blend this with, I think overlay is the one I want. I'm just going to check. Okay, well, we want soft light. That's what we want, soft light. Yeah, soft light. And this way I can change how this first set of images is blending together. You don't have to just always use normal. You can actually change some of the settings and get different stuff, and I don't want to blur it. So this should now output correctly. The other stuff should be sorted. What's my prompt looking like? Yeah. I think I'm kind of happy with that, but I'm going to add some explorers. Group of explorers. Okay. Explorers? Explorers. Yes, okay. And we get that, and we get that. Okay. Okay, all right. It is now set up and ready to go. So if we just click go, it should go. Runs through here, creates the gradient, blends the things together, duct tapes them together and sends a preview here, which is not really changed enough for my liking. I'm going to fix that by changing this back to normal. Why not? There's no reason not to. And we may as well see what output it's doing. So as you can see, it's still able to make some really good images this way, which may be difficult to make. Just putting prompt words in, getting the kind of colors you want, getting the style you want could be much more difficult just using words, because it's not going to understand when you tell it you want colors in certain places or that kind of stuff. It really sucks at colors. You said red sunrise, you'll have red mountains, red people, and that stuff. So as you can see, it is still able to make some cool images, even though it didn't do exactly what I wanted. I'm going to copy this one, actually, and paste it. What is this one? There's some oddly sized humans, that one. Okay. We'll run it again, because I want to run this out and have an actual better color. Now it's still not quite there. I need more of it, so I'm going to put this at 6 actually. Blending even more of the gradient in with it. And that's going to create more of the same, because the color profile and image is pretty much the same. So I'll cancel that and we'll rerun it. Yes, I am actually recording this. I literally had to check, because I have done like a 40-minute tutorial before and looked up and realized that I hadn't clicked record, which is not optimum. Okay. No, it's still not really good enough, to be honest. Not really got enough of the color I want, but I guess it'll do. That's pretty cool. I'm going to copy that one. Now, because I can copy these things and just paste them in here, I can then copy them here and paste them here. And this particular load image loads directly into my upscalers. And you might notice I have this one is grayed out. So if I Control M, I can unmute it, which will activate my upscalers. Before it was disabled, which stopped it from running this when I was running the other prompts. and now it should run this. It is using a canny control net. It is running realistic vision instead of SDXL, and it is running with a iterative impact pack upscaler using pixel upscaling, and it is also using the add detail 1.5 LoRa, in case you're wondering. And if I run it, it will try and run your workflow from where you have a selected node, by the way. So if you have an area that's different from your main one and you click into that area, it will go backwards and try to find where it should start, and then it will run forwards, and it should run your isolated bit before it runs the rest of it. And sometimes it won't even run the rest of it. Alright, so we are now refining this image and upscaling it. And it has created a canny image over here and is loading correctly into the apply control net, which is a good way of stopping it from wildly hallucinating when you're upscaling. Have control net applied. Control net can be good for redoing an image at a higher level of denoising, but I like to use it just to keep kind of the borders in place at like a mid-level of denoising. But anyway, this is going to take a while. I may as well end it there, and you can see that this system can be used to create all kinds of setups. You can do all kinds of stuff with this.